Katie. We have The Message in the Hollow Oak. We are on Chapter 11, Problem and Jealousy. As the girls rushed from the farmhouse, a bright light was turned on them, almost blinding the group. They could hear running footsteps. "What happened?" Julie Ann asked excitedly. At that moment, the glaring light was switched away from them and focused onto two fleeing figures. All the girls beamed their flashlights and now could see Les, who carried a powerful electric lantern. He made no attempt to dash after the men, so Nancy hurried up to him. "Let's catch them," she suggested, and started to run. Les held her back.
"No, it's too dangerous. Those men were going to kidnap you."
"What?" cried Julie Ann, who had rushed to their side. Les explained that he had seen two figures approaching the house and hidden himself behind a bush to watch them. They had paused near him to talk in whispers. Les went on.
"I heard one of them say, 'I've been casing the place. I know which is the Drew girl's bed. You wait here. I'll go in and put her in a deep sleep and carry her out.' "Right," the other man said. "She's been interfering with our plans long enough." Then the first man said, "Okay, Kit."
Nancy and Julie Ann gasped. The other girls had crowded around and were exclaiming how dreadful it was. "This is really getting dangerous," Claire Warwick said, eyeing Nancy scornfully. Nancy had to agree, and was sure now that she was the cause of it all. Perhaps she should not come back here after the towboat trip, but instead find some secret place to stay while she worked on the Hollow Oak mystery. She asked Les to describe the men. The one who was called Kit fitted the description of the man who said his name was Tom Wilson. As before, he did not limp. But who was his companion? Nancy wondered. Les said that he decided at first to jump out at the men with his lantern and scare them away, but then realized he would be no match for them in a fight.
"I'm sorry we lost those would-be kidnappers," he remarked.
Nancy thanked him. Forcing a smile, she said to the others, "Tomorrow morning I'll be leaving, and all your worries will be over." "I'm glad to hear that," Claire Warwick said. "I mean, no offense, Nancy, but after all, you're not an archaeology student, and your detective work here has—" "That will be enough," Teresa spoke up sharply. "I suggest all you girls go back to bed." Claire looked angry and mumbled something about being treated like a child, but she followed the others into the house and went to her room. Julie Ann put an arm around Nancy. "Don't let her worry you, dear. Nobody cares for Claire, and I'm sure all the other girls like you. They'd be sorry to see you leave for good." Nancy smiled in appreciation. She slept a few hours, then was up before the rising bell. When the boys arrived from their house, they were astounded to learn of the attempted kidnapping. Art said, "I wonder if the same two men took Bob Snell away." "If so, I'm pretty sure I know who one of them is," Nancy told him, and mentioned Kit Cadle, alias Tom Wilson. "It's a good thing we're going on the towboat trip for a few days. Maybe Cadle will think I've gone home and the group here won't be harassed by intruders." Art made no comment. As he looked off into space, Nancy wondered, can he still be sulking about meeting Ned? They walked into the farmhouse and joined the line for a cafeteria breakfast. Art ate quickly and went back to his dormitory to pack. The others did not see him until 11:15 when he trudged up the path carrying a suitcase. Nancy and Julie Ann were waiting for the helicopter to arrive. As the three looked up, they could see it coming. In a few minutes, the whirlybird settled down onto the field near the farmhouse. The trio hurried forward to greet Roscoe Thompson. Nancy introduced Julie Ann, then the three passengers climbed the ladder into the cockpit. The pilot asked how everything had been going and was told there had been trouble at the dig. Nancy reported the disappearance of Bob Snell, suggesting that while Roscoe was flying around the area, he might keep his eyes open for anything suspicious.
"I'll do that, but why would anyone want to kidnap him?"
"Nobody knows," Art answered. Nancy did not intend to mention her own danger, but Julie Ann blurted it out.
Roscoe's eyes opened wide. "This is pretty bad," he remarked. "You're lucky those two fellows didn't succeed."
"I agree," Nancy said. "I believe you know one of the men is Tom Wilson."
Roscoe looked surprised. "Is that so? But Wilson limps. How come you couldn't catch him?" Art chuckled. "He had a limp until he was cornered, and then he could run like a deer."
By the time the copter was coming in for a landing at a private field outside of Cairo, or by this time, Roscoe borrowed a pilot friend's car and drove his 3 passengers to town. When he pulled up to the entrance of the Delta Motel, they said goodbye and went inside. Art and the girls checked their luggage, then had a light lunch. Nancy suggested that they take a taxi to the airfield and meet Ned and the others. During the ride, Art did not say a word. When they reached the field, he walked off by himself.
"What's eating him?"
Julie Ann asked. "Competition," Nancy replied. "Julie Ann, I think you'll have to cheer up poor Art." The girl beamed. "Do you think I can do it? He's been tagging along after you ever since you arrived." "Of course you can," Nancy said. "Why don't you start in right now by walking over to him?" Julie Ann liked this idea and set off at once. Nancy strolled up and down, but kept an eye on the couple. Pretty soon she was delighted to see that Art was actually laughing. When the helicopter from St. Louis hovered into sight, he took Julie Ann's arm and brought her over to where Nancy was standing. There was wild enthusiasm as Nancy greeted Bess and George and the boys. Julie Ann, meanwhile, had rushed up to her cousin Ned and hugged him. Then she introduced him to Art. The two shook hands, and Ned was most cordial, but Art seemed aloof. There was a lot of chatter on the way to the motel. The newcomers were shocked when they heard about the mysterious happenings at the dig and the 2 disappearances, plus the attempted kidnapping on Nancy. Bert, blond and husky, said,
"I wish I'd been here to capture those 2 guys."
Dave, a green-eyed, rangy blonde, added,
"Pretty bold guys."
Both Bess and George expressed their deep concern for Nancy. "Maybe you're not safe anywhere around here," Bess added. Nancy, happy at being reunited with her friends, laughed it off. "Kit Cadle would have to be the world's best swimmer to get out to the towboat. I understand swimming in the Ohio is dangerous because of step-offs and strong undercurrents." Presently, the group reached the motel, and the new arrivals added their bags to the other luggage. Together, the 8 visitors strolled around the small town. Many of the houses were modest frame structures, but on a lovely tree-lined street they found several Victorian mansions. One stately red brick house was open for inspection, and they took the tour. As they walked through the handsome, high-ceilinged rooms, Bess kept her eye on Art. It had not taken her long to realize that the young man had become very fond of Nancy and resented Ned's being there. She was intrigued at the way he found excuses to speak to Nancy whenever Ned was not nearby. At first, Ned did not seem to notice this, but he soon realized the situation. From then on, the 2 boys did not say a word to each other. Bess thought, "here's a problem in jealousy." She decided to do something about it. While they were admiring the silver tea service in the dining room, so like a tea set, Bess said to Art, "Julie Ann is a great girl, don't you think?"
"Why, yes," he answered.
Nancy overheard the remark and was fearful something unpleasant might happen to ruin the trip. Quickly, she interrupted. "Art likes everybody, so it's hard for him to be nicer to one person than another." The young man paused a moment.
"I guess that's right,"
he replied, and walked off. Nancy took Bess aside. "Please don't say any more. Apparently you've seen a little tension here. I'm hoping Art will pay more attention to Julie Ann, but I can't rush it." Bess nodded. "I wouldn't want to start anything for anything in the world." Nancy and her friends had an early dinner at a small restaurant, then hailed a taxi. They picked up their luggage and the boys' sleeping bags and rode to the riverfront. A tugboat took them out a short distance to a white towboat with red trim. How spick and span it looked! A broad-shouldered man with a ruddy face met them on a narrow deck and helped the girls aboard.
"Welcome to the Sally-O," he said. "I'm Captain Boge."
Ned introduced the visitors, and the captain led them into a galley. That's usually where food is served on a ship. A pretty, middle-aged woman in a pink house dress was taking a pan of hot rolls from a shiny oven.
"This is our cook, Maddie,"
said the captain. The woman chuckled. "I'm everything," she said. "House mother and nurse, too. If you want anything, let me know. And help yourselves to cake and fruit at any time." She pointed to the food on the side counter.
"Oh, my diet,"
moaned Bess. The captain led his passengers to an upper deck and showed them a deluxe double bedroom with its own adjoining lounge and bath.
"This is for you girls," he said. "You boys will use your sleeping bags in the afterdeck." He grinned. "If it rains, you can duck into the engine room."
"This is great," said George. "I never knew towboats were so beautiful." After freshening up and changing into pantsuits, the girls joined the boys in the pilot house. Captain Boge was there. Before they could speak to him, the boat was suddenly shaken by a terrific jolt.
"Nothing to worry about," the captain assured them. "We're shaping up, that's all."
From the wide front window, he pointed to a tugboat maneuvering the huge barges into position. Fascinated, the visitors watched the sure-footed crew roping them securely together.
"We call this wiring 'em up," said the captain. "Takes a long time because we have to be sure they all fit together and will ride without bucking."
At twilight, the job was finished. The towboat started slowly upstream, pushing 15 barges ahead of it, 3 abreast, so side by side. Some were empty, others filled with grain and coal. Looking behind, the boys noted where the blue-gray water of the Ohio met the muddy Mississippi.
"That's quite a sight,"
Dave remarked. Ahead were low tree-lined banks. Soon these vanished into darkness. Here and there the young people saw the lights of small towns or a brilliantly lighted cement plant on the shore. Now and then the red and green lights of another boat approached, and the captain blew a deafening blast on his horn. At midnight the weary passengers went to bed. Around noon the next day, Captain Boge said they were near Cave and Rock. He pointed out a quarry in the Illinois shore.
"I'm leaving my barges off there and taking on 2 others, so I'll be tied up a couple hours. If you want to visit the cave, go out to that first barge and jump off when it's against the dock."
He gave them directions to the rocky cavern. The visitors followed his advice and walked along the edge from one barge to another until they came to the end. When this barge was maneuvered into place, the passengers jumped off and started for Cave and Rock. They walked along the tree-lined bank. When it became rocky, they climbed upward and soon emerged from the woods, a few yards from the Mammoth Cave. Nancy suddenly put up her hand for everyone to halt. "Listen," she said. "I think I hear a cry for help." "Ooh,"